Hi, I'm Droolbatz. It's so nice to see you. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 2017 horror film Truth or Dare. There are a lot of horror movies called Truth or Dare, Truth or Die, or some kind of variation on that, so just to be clear, this is the 2017 one, not the most recent one. That said, I'm going to be reviewing it based on its premise, its production value, and finally how it compares or contrasts to other films of the genre. I hope you enjoy. The premise is pretty straightforward and probably what you already expected. A group of friends, I think there's about 8 of them, it's a pretty large group of friends, are gonna hang out. They just wanna hang out for a weekend. One of their friends, who is a really big fan of doing crazy stunts and putting them on YouTube, kind of like the Jake Paul crew, wants to be viral or something. The house that he rented for them to hang out in, he reveals it's kind of like an Airbnb, but it's an Airbnb for houses that are supposedly haunted. His friends kind of do what I just did. They roll their eyes. They are not super impressed. They're like, whatever, let's just hang out. So they all start drinking beer and having fun. They start to play this game of Truth or Dare. The guy who's filming everything and wants to go viral tells them that, oh, I have a tuft, tells them that people in the 1980s played this game and all of them had a terrible tragedy befall. So the other friends are like, whatever, we're not too worried. And some of the dares are stupid things like, oh, you gotta kiss so-and-so, or like, oh, style your hair weird and stuff. But on the second or third turn, a card that everyone claims they did not write shows up asking this one girl, did you sleep with your best friend's boyfriend? Who's, both of them are right there. And she goes, I don't want to play this. This is stupid. I'm not playing. But then weird stuff starts going on and this voice is like, you have to play. You have to answer the question. And she admits that yes, in a moment of indiscretion, she and her best friend's boyfriend hooked up or whatever. This immediately causes a rift and she's really angry that someone would call her out like that. But everyone claims that they didn't write the card. They had no idea. Obviously, her friend is super mad at her and the boyfriend now. And she wants to leave and go home because suddenly it's not fun anymore. But they can't leave the house. More and more mysterious cards start showing up in this Truth or Dare game that are kind of scary, harmful cards, like put your hand on a hot stove and things like that. They don't know where the cards are coming from. This creepy voice shows up on the TV and says, do the dare or the dare will do you. Well, they try to resist at first, but a telekinetic force pushes the guy so he falls and puts his hand on the hot stove. Bam, he didn't do the dare, so the dare did him. What is the connection between this game of Truth or Dare and the game in the 1980s? And what is making them play this game? And how will they get out since the dares and truths seem to be so harmful to them? Will they survive? You'll have to watch the movie to find out. This movie had a really solid production value and it felt like a really high quality movie. The acting I thought was really good for what they had to do. The cast of characters was quite large. I think in the beginning it's like 8 people, which is a little bit more than most movies would attempt. When you have that many characters, it's sometimes hard to give them the depth of character that they're due, but this movie did a pretty good job of it. I think in the beginning, when they're kind of establishing oh, we're a fun-loving group of college kids, we're just here to hang out over the weekend and drink and do all that stuff. The dialogue was a little bit cringy, just the setup was a little bit ugh. As it is in most movies about young people, establishing the friendship and during the exposition is always kind of weird. But scary stuff started happening pretty quick into the movie, and once the scary stuff started happening, the acting and the script got really good. The characters were really quick on the uptake too. They realized almost right away, well, something creepy is going on and we can't control it, so we've got to play by the rules if we want to survive. And there wasn't too much of the whole oh, I'm in denial kind of thing going on, and so as a result, it felt like the characters were trying to outsmart it. It felt like a smarter version of this than I've seen in the past. So the movie had really good pacing. The scares started happening pretty immediately and followed throughout the movie. As far as the camera work goes, it was very solid. There were a lot of interesting shots and a lot of shot variety, so the movie didn't feel very stale visually. The special effects were really cool too. I was really impressed. The mysterious entity that is communicating with these truth or dare players gives them these challenges, like it'll send them a card that says eat the burnt flesh off the stove or whatever. It'll communicate with them saying like you have 5 minutes to do it, or you have 2 minutes or whatever to do this dare, or else the dare will do you. And the way that this entity communicated with them was unique each time. Like at one point a door slammed shut and it said like 5 minutes, or at another time like water dripped from the ceiling and the drip made like a 6 for 6 minutes. At one point a telephone called them. There was this one really cool sequence where these bed sheets, like they're in college, so this dude was like laying on his dorm bed and it wasn't made, because who makes their bed in college, and the bed sheets started slowly twisting into a 9, and that was just a really cool sequence. I was impressed by the CGI. And the other special effects, like the blood and gore and stuff, were very convincing. I was really impressed at how the movie didn't repeat itself. It would have been easy for the voice on the television to just say, like, you have 6 minutes, you have 9 minutes each time, but instead the movie kept it unique and fresh. So I was really impressed by that. Altogether, it was just a really solidly produced movie. Now I'm going to be discussing how this movie stands apart from or blends into other films of the genre. I will be spoiling part of this movie, so if you want to see for yourself what all the hype is about, I'll say farewell to you now. Thanks so much for stopping by. For those of you who are sticking around, thank you so much. After surviving one round of Crazy Truth or Dare, the friends are able to escape the house. One girl in the house died as a result of the truth that she didn't want to tell. She wouldn't tell the truth, so the truth told her. The friends managed to escape. Conveniently, the police rules the stuff an accident and a suicide and things like that, so they're not in trouble with the law. But obviously they're very disturbed. The girl and her best friend who cheated with her boyfriend are now in a big fight. Things are just very different now. However, one of the guys, when he's in his dorm room, starts getting this truth or dare message and ends up being killed by the dare that he wouldn't do. The friends realize that even though they escaped from this house, they still are playing the game. There was one survivor, apparently, of the crazy phenomenon that went on in the 80s. They are able to track down this woman and kind of like seek her advice. Basically, she's horribly burned with acid that apparently was thrown on her in the dare back in the 80s. And she basically says that what they've done is they were playing Truth or Dare, and there's a demon that lurks around, and when people play Truth or Dare, sometimes that's the portal for the demon. Its goal is to steal your soul by forcing you to play this game. She says you can beat it, but you have to finish the round, or you have to finish the game. I think it's 3 rounds of Truth or Dare. You have to finish all 3 rounds, and you can defeat it, but you have to work together as a team. The survivor said one of her dares was she had to make 4 deep cuts. So she did 2 on herself, and 2 of her friends each took 1, and that's how she didn't bleed to death. Like, obviously she was injured, but she didn't bleed to death. So she says you have to work together if you're going to survive. They're like, well, can we outrun it? And she says, well, no, obviously you tried that. It's not linked to the house. You were just chosen randomly, and it can follow you, as was evidenced by the friend who died in his dorm room. So they're like, okay, we're gonna finish this. So the survivors go back to the house. They have to deal with their interpersonal drama, and a lot of, they're like, some of them who've been hiding weird pasts show up, and a lot of gore and screams ensue. I will not reveal the rest to you, but you kind of get the picture. The notion of people playing Truth or Dare and it being a deadly game is not at all a new concept. There are a lot of movies that do this. Obviously, the name Truth or Dare is really common. One of the very first horror movies I saw many years ago when I first started watching horror movies was called Truth or Die. That said, it's a very, very solid concept. You can do a lot with it creatively, and I mean, even if you're seeing the same thing you've seen before, it's still a very solid horror movie concept. So even though it's not super original, it is very scary. You know what you're getting, and sometimes you're just in a mood where you want to know what's in store for you, and this movie very much delivered on that front. One thing that did kind of stand out to me just socially was how the boyfriend who cheated on his girlfriend, obviously he felt really bad, and it kind of influenced how he dealt with some of the dares. He was really quick to step up and try to help people with their dares. Like one girl had to pull her teeth out, so she pulled out one of her teeth and he pulled out one of his teeth. And he mainly stepped in to help the dares with the girlfriend and then the girlfriend's best friend. Because, I mean, obviously he regretted cheating, but he also felt bad that, like, his girlfriend's best friend was now her enemy, and he's like, well, she didn't deserve that. And so the fact that he kind of stood up and was trying to be noble was kind of unique. Obviously, that's just a character thing, but a lot of times in horror movies around doing crazy things like truth or dare, characters tend to get really cowardly, and, you know, self-preservation is a natural instinct, but he felt so bad about it that he kind of changed that social formula up a little bit. And so that was kind of unique and satisfying. This movie reminded me a lot of Truth or Die and of Never Knock. Basically movies where the very scary element is personalized to each individual. The dares and stuff were very personalized in this movie. Like when the guy got his hand stuck on the burning hot stove and he ripped his hand off, there was some flesh stuck to the oven, super gross. The next dare was that this girl had to eat his burned flesh. That's super gross in and of itself, obviously, but also this girl was a tried and true vegetarian. So double gross, right? The movie very much specified a lot of the dares to the people, and so that kind of added this level of intelligence and irony to it. Because they were specified to each individual, it kind of reminded me of Never Knock. That's not about truth or dares, but it's about a scary entity that tries to scare you based on your personal fears. That's not necessarily a unique story element in and of itself, but it helps create depth in the characters because you get to kind of learn about them without any weird exposition. It's just like, oh, you have to get hit by a car, and then the person reveals, oh, yeah, that's because I was involved in a hit-and-run accident, and I've been living with that guilt for years, or something. So it helped establish a depth of characters that you don't normally expect in movies like this all the time. If I had to rate this movie, I would give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was just a very solid, high-quality film. The acting was great, the special effects were great and convincing, and some of the scares were quite genuine. I would give the movie probably a higher score if it were more original, but it doesn't need to be super original. I mean, you know what you're getting, and they were pretty upfront about what the plot would be, and that's satisfying to me. Sometimes a plot twist is really cool, but sometimes you just want a straightforward movie, and this was very straightforward. Just a really solid movie, so 4 out of 5 stars from me. Thank you so much for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you have any opinions to share. Leave a comment if you're so inclined. If you liked this review, please consider liking this video so that I can see. And if you like horror reviews, I do review horror movies on this channel, so maybe consider subscribing if you'd like to see more. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye.